Today, we're going to take a look at the best vlogging cameras of 2018. So with vlogging being the big thing in 2017 and 2018, I figured I'd make a video about the best vlogging cameras that you guys can buy based on three main components. The first one being price. There's a wide variety of different price ranges for vlogging cameras. The second being the amount of features it has, whether it has good autofocus and it shoots in 4K, or if it has good low light capabilities. And the last one being the size. If you're going to be carrying around a camera all day long, you probably want to take this one into consideration. If you're carrying a camera that only weighs 7 ounces all day, it's going to be a lot easier than if you're carrying around a camera that weighs 5 pounds all day. So what we're going to be taking a look at today is a variety of different brands of cameras and whether or not they're a good investment for you, going from least expensive to most expensive. So let's jump right into that right now with the Sony A5100. Now this camera is actually the one that gets the least amount of credit for what it can do on the price that it comes with. Now this camera is actually one of the cheapest ones on our entire list out of all three brands that we're going to be looking at. The first upside of this camera is that it only costs you about 400 bucks. If you're a new vlogger and you don't want to spend tons of cash on a camera, you just kind of want to, dip your toe into the water and see what it's like, this is probably a good camera for you. It's not too technical, it has good autofocus, and it has a flip-up screen. This camera is also very lightweight, and that's going to make it easy for you to carry around all day long. Just look at somebody like Peter McKinnon, who vlogs with a 1DX Mark II, which weighs like 5 pounds or whatever, with the whole rig set up with his GorillaPod and the 16-35mm lens and the Rode VideoMic Pro. It's just a huge setup, and I love what it looks like, but it's just huge, and if you don't want to carry that around all day, you want to go for a lightweight setup. This camera also has a large sensor. Now don't get that confused with a large format camera, which is mainly used for stills photography. This camera has a Super 35 or APS-C crop sensor, and that basically means that it's 26 millimeters from corner to corner. What this is going to do is it's going to allow you to shoot better low light video than if the sensor was smaller. And also it's going to give you more depth of field, which means the background is going to be blurrier. And I know a lot of people that love to vlog or love vlogs in general want that blurry background kind of look. It's kind of like a staple right now in the vlogging world. Full frame or crop sensor with the blurry background, people love it. And by the way, every camera on this list made by Sony is also a great camera for photography, which means that if you want a travel camera to take stills and to take videos, you might want to consider going with a Sony camera because they're great for both. The autofocus on this camera is good, and honestly all Sony cameras really have good autofocus for the most part. It also has a flip-up screen, which means that you're going to be able to see what you're recording when you're filming yourself, and you're going to be able to frame your shots properly. Now the downsides to this camera is that the battery life is horrible, and you're probably only going to get like maybe 45 minutes to an hour out of one battery each. There's a simple fix to that, just carry batteries with you. This camera does not shoot 4K, which may be a turnoff for some people, but to be honest, 1080p is completely usable. One of the biggest downsides of this camera is that it doesn't have a mic jack, which means that you're going to have to use the internal microphone that's built into the camera. It kind of sucks, but you can get some little foam windscreens that you can put on top of the camera, and it'll cover up the microphone from any wind noise. The last downside to this camera is that it does not come with a lens, which means you have to purchase one in order to make it work. It's not a point and shoot camera, which means it does not come with a lens attached to it. This is a con for the price, but it's also a pro because that means you can attach a variety of different lenses. Going with the base minimum is going to cost you around 500 bucks with a kit lens, and if you want to upgrade to the Sony 10 to 18 millimeter, which is a very, very good lens, it's going to cost you about $1,000, which in that case you might as well upgrade to the next camera on our list. The Sony RX100 Mark IV/Mark V, in my personal opinion, I don't think it's really in your best interest to buy the Mark V. Just go with the Mark IV and save the extra $150. This is the king of the Sony vlogger's wallet, and this camera has kind of taken over the game for anyone who uses Sony cameras in the vlogging world. Just like the A5100, it has a flip-up screen, great autofocus, and it actually shoots 4K. This camera is just about as light as the A5100, and it shoots up to 900 frames a second at 1080p, which is absolutely insane. That means you're going to be able to get crazy slow motion video. This camera also has a built-in 24-70 lens with a 2.8 to f4 aperture, and that means you're going to be able to shoot well in low light and have a wide variety of different focal lengths that you can choose from. You can zoom all the way out to 24mm, or you can zoom all the way into 70mm, which is going to give you a good dynamic when recording. As for the cons on this camera, the battery life is even worse than the A5100, but like I said, you can choose to carry around a few extra batteries if you need. Again, there's no mic jack on this camera, but plenty of vloggers use it and it actually sounds fantastic. The small sensor size on this camera is going to prevent you from getting really out of focus backgrounds, which I know some of you really want and really love. And the last thing is that this camera costs $900, and that's kind of a hefty price for a lot of you guys, so if you don't want to spend up, like I said, go for the A5100. The last camera on this list is the A6500, and this is personally the camera that I've been using for the past year. Just like the others, it has great autofocus and it's lightweight, but it also shoots in 4K, has a large image sensor, and it has a microphone jack. This camera also has many other features that make it great for filmmaking and photography, so if you're looking into vlogging but also love photography and filmmaking, you might want to consider this option. As for the cons on this camera, the battery life is atrocious, but like I said, carry some extra batteries around with you. You're also going to have to buy a lens for this camera as it doesn't come with one built in, which is going to set you back around $300 to $500, maybe $600 or $700, depending on how good of a lens you choose. This camera also doesn't have a flip out screen, which kind of makes it difficult to compose your shots, but if you get a wide enough lens like the Sony 10 to 18mm, it's going to be pretty easy to keep yourself in focus and in frame because of how wide it is. This camera also costs around $1,400 for the body alone. That means minus the lens that you're going to have to pick up on top of that. So if you're looking to spend up, maybe you want to pick this one up, but if you're not, you might want to go with one of the other options. I would also recommend the Sony A7R II or A7R III. They basically have all of the same features as the A6500, but they're also full frame cameras, which means you're going to get an even more out of focus background and even better low light capabilities. The A7R III also has an upgraded battery, which is going to probably last you all day. The drawbacks to these cameras are that the A7R II is going to set you back $2,000, and the A7R III is going to set you back about $3,500. So unless you're willing to spend that kind of money, you might want to look at a different option. Moving on to the next brand, we have Canon, and we're going to start this list off with the new Canon SL2. I personally believe this is the best vlogging camera that you can pick up for the money. The size, price, and features of this camera put it right at the top in my favorite vlogging camera on this entire list. Now, this doesn't mean there aren't better cameras than the SL2. This means that this is the best vlogging camera for the price, features, and size in my opinion. This camera has a flip out screen, great autofocus, it's lightweight, it shoots 1080p, it has a mic jack, and it's the second cheapest camera on this list, coming in at about $500. It actually also has a pretty good battery life compared to the Sony cameras. It might not last you all day if you're shooting all day long, but it also has a 24 megapixel sensor, which means you're going to be able to use this as a stills camera. So if you're looking for a camera to double as a travel camera for photography and filmmaking, this one might be a great option for you. Now for some of the cons. Although this camera has a good size sensor, Canon DSLRs have not been known to be very good in low light. You're also going to have to pick up a lens with this camera, but luckily Canon lenses are actually usually cheaper than Sony lenses, so you can pick up a 10 to 18mm from Canon for like $300. Some third-party companies make lenses for the Canon mount as well, which means you can pick up a Tokina 11 to 16 or a Sigma 10 to 20, and that'll actually be a little bit cheaper than buying the Canon 10 to 18. Now the last con for this camera is that it does not shoot 4K video, and like I've said before, you don't need 4K to make great videos. Moving on to the next camera, we have the Canon 70D/80D, and in my opinion, this is just a beefed up Canon SL2. Now personally, I don't think it's worth buying either of these cameras over the SL2. They have the same features practically, they shoot in 1080p, they have the same sensor size, they have the same autofocus. Essentially, they're the same camera, but just for a little bit more money. Now, obviously these cameras aren't identical. There are gonna be some features that the SL2 doesn't have, but for vlogging, I think it would be impractical to buy a 70D or an 80D when the SL2 is on the market. Now, the last camera we're gonna talk about from Canon is the Canon 6D Mark II, and currently this camera is overthrowing the vlogging market. This is the hottest camera on YouTube right now for vloggers, and here's why. This camera is probably the best vlogging camera for the efficiency and the way that it's made. The only downside really is that it's $2,000 for the body alone without a lens, and it's full frame, so you're gonna have to buy some more expensive lenses. So really the only downside is the cost, but really this camera is incredible for vlogging. It basically has all the features that the SL2 has: the flip out screen, the great autofocus, the 1080p recording. However, this camera is a full frame camera. Everyone's raving over the full frame look right now in vlogging, and everyone wants it. The other upside to having a full frame camera is that you're gonna get better low light capabilities. Now, the cons to this camera is that yes, it does cost $2,000 and you're gonna have to buy an extra lens with it. Now, the cheapest lens that's gonna work for this camera is the 17-40 by Canon. It's their L series lens, and it's gonna set you back about $800. So altogether, you're spending almost $3,000 on this vlogging setup. I personally wouldn't recommend this to somebody who, one, doesn't have the money, and two, is just getting into vlogging. Now, although you can spend $800 on the 17-40 by Canon, it does have some weird distortion issues I've heard, and you might not want to go with that. In that case, you're gonna have to pick up the 16-35, which is gonna set you back at least $1,000. This is one of the main reasons why I said the SL2 is the best vlogging camera on the market right now. It's the second cheapest camera out of all of these cameras, and it has amazing features and great autofocus and a flip out screen and everything that you're really gonna need in a vlogging camera. So do you really need full frame camera for vlogging? I'm not sure you do. If you like that kind of stuff and you have $3,000 to spend, then go for it. But personally, I think the SL2 is the best one in this category. Now, some bigger YouTubers like Casey Neistat and Maddie from Travel Feels and Jared Polin are all using the 60 Mark II as their vlogging camera, and I think that's perfectly fine, and I think that the 60 Mark II is really an incredible vlogging camera. But if you're just looking to start getting into vlogging, you don't need a 60 Mark II, especially if you can't afford it. Go with the SL2, go with a cheaper option, and just get your name out there, start creating content, and start making stuff. The last brand that we're looking at is Panasonic, and personally, I would not recommend Panasonic cameras to anyone that's looking to strictly be a vlogger, and for one main reason. Their autofocus is universally not good. Now, in the past couple of days, I've seen some videos circling about how to fix the autofocus on your Panasonic cameras. I'm not sure if it works really well or not. You tell me in the comments below if you think it does, and if it does, then maybe you want to pick up a Panasonic camera. But as of the release date of this video, I personally would not recommend any Panasonic cameras for vlogging unless your main purpose is to use it for filmmaking and you just want to vlog on the side. So the first camera we're going to look at is the Panasonic G7, and this camera comes in at about $600, which is great. It has a flip out screen, it shoots full 4K, has great battery life, it's lightweight. It has a mic jack, it shoots slow motion, it's got really great features, but the one drawback is that it has terrible autofocus. Another drawback is that it has a micro four thirds sensor, which means you're not gonna get a very blurry background no matter what lens you're using. The lenses from Panasonic tend to be kind of expensive as well when it comes to zoom lenses that have a constant aperture. Overall, I think Panasonic makes great cameras. The GH5 and the GH5S are incredible revolutionary cameras, and I would love to have one for making films, but when it comes to vlogging, I don't think these are the cameras you want to pick up. The GH4 and the G85 are the next cameras on this list, and they're essentially the same thing, except they have a couple more features than the G7 has. They shoot full 4K, they have in-body stabilization so that your shaky footage is going to be nice and smooth. But again, they have micro four thirds sensors and they don't have great autofocus. And finally, the last camera on this list is the Panasonic GH5, which is going to set you back about $2,000. Like I said, if you want to make films, get this camera because it's incredible. But if you're just looking to vlog, I would stay away from all Panasonic cameras. Now for some results. Like I've been saying throughout this entire video, I think the Canon SL2 would be the best vlogging camera that you can pick up. I think that the mixture of the price and the size and the features that you're getting with this camera, it's just unbeatable for what you're paying. It has all the features necessary to make a good vlog. It has a flip out screen, it has a mic jack, it has amazing autofocus. In reality, this is the camera that you want to get if you're just starting out vlogging, especially if you're just starting out vlogging. This is the camera that you want to pick up. Overall, buying a vlogging camera is going to come down to your wants and your needs. If you want 4K but you need a flip out screen, you might want to go with the SL2 instead of the A6500 from Sony. If you want a great travel camera for photography and filmmaking, but you kind of want to do some vlogging on the side as well, the A6500 might actually be a great option. I hope this guide helps you in some way. I hope it gives you a good reference as to what cameras are out there and what kind of features they have. In reality, I really hope this guide just helps push you out the door and gets you to start making movies. Buying a camera can be a real hassle, and figuring out which camera you want versus what camera you need versus what you can afford, it can all be really stressful sometimes. So I really hope this helps you get out there and start making movies and making something really awesome. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a thumbs up. If you didn't, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear your feedback and I really appreciate it. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this, but that's going to do it for this one. So I'll see you guys in the next video.